us, and I am going to unmute Lieutenant Governor Governor Gilchrist, who we're very pleased to have join us today. Lieutenant Governor, once I find you here, I'm going to ask you to unmute, and you can unmute and go ahead. You're here with clergy from all over the state of Michigan, and we're really grateful that you can join us tonight.
Thank you, Luke. I appreciate the opportunity to connect with everyone, and I also want to thank Eileen for her leadership for Faith in Action for the state. I want to also appreciate all of the clergy and community leaders who are here, and want to say thank you to you for the service that you provide to the communities that make our state what it is, and the way that you press and pray that we can be the state that we can actually be, that we can aspire to. And so I appreciate every one of you. I also thank all of you for working well with our faith, our contact for the faith community in our office, Dion Williams. I know that you all have a relationship with him and lean on him, and I want to thank you for that. Having that dialogue and that open line of communication is really important to me, just as it is important to Governor Gretchen Whitmer, whom I also bring greetings on behalf of. I'm going to keep this very brief so that we can have some time for questions and answers. Y'all really, I talk enough. So hopefully we can have a little bit more of a two-way conversation. Many of you may know I am the child of a Baptist minister. My mother, Yvonne Posey Gilchrist, is a minister at Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church in Detroit. And so I always want to make sure folks know that. So I've had a lot of hands laid on me over the years by Mama. But really the message I want to send today is really one of action. And one of the things I appreciate about this organization is that it does not treat faith as a passive exercise or experience. Faith without works is dead, as the Bible says. And so this organization, its values and its actions really, I think, are emblematic of that. And so as we round the corner here into this fall, there are so many things, so many actions that are there for the taking for our communities across the state of Michigan. I'm talking, of course, about things like the census, which people need to fill out like next week to make sure that people are fully counted and represented. Census taking is important because I see it as an opportunity for us to show pride in our communities. And when we show that pride by completing the census, it makes sure that the resources that are ours will be delivered and administered to our communities in an equitable fashion according to the measure that we report. And so it is critical that I think all of us step up. And I know that I would hope that all of you in your congregations have been making sure that folks are aware of both the important nature of the census and how easy it is to fill out this year. The census has been under attack, frankly, from the federal government, which is ironic because it is administered by the federal government. But I know that we have the chance to overcome that, especially in our communities that are hardest to count, where I know a lot of you have your congregations. And so I hope that everyone is focusing on that. And then today, I'm proud to be able to address this body today. What is the first day that voting is available in the state of Michigan, thanks to the, I think, vision, frankly, of the Michigan voters in 2018. They didn't just elect Gretchen Whitmer and myself, but we also passed Proposal 3, which greatly expanded access to the ballot box for people across the state and made it easier for people to register and to vote. And so one of those pieces that became true in 2000 after that election is that people are now able to vote absentee without an excuse, and more people are able to vote in person. More people are able to register up to and including on election day. People are able to register to vote online in the state of Michigan because we believe that making voting easier and more accessible is the path we should always be on. We are not afraid of people voting. We want more people to participate in our democracy and in our decision-making processes. And so as today begins the beginning, in a very literal sense, of this election, I hope that you are all imploring all of those who you are shepherding and those you are connected to make sure that their they are registered to vote, that their registrations are current and accurate, and then that they are taking full advantage of the safe and convenient voting options that are available to everyone in Michigan this fall. That means you can request an absentee ballot. You can, starting today, go and vote in person. In mid-October, there will be a number of satellite voting locations opening across the state that people can go and vote in person, in addition to going to their, county, city, or township clerks' offices to complete ballots. This is important. And I'm asking that people, once they get those ballots, that they fill them out as quickly as possible. As soon as you have your mind made up, I want you to go vote. And that's because there have been a number of threats to our voting process and voting systems, whether that is from foreign actors or from the president trying to undermine the integrity of the process and the Postal Service. And so people can, as soon as they make up their mind on everything up and down the ballot, I want you to vote up and down. I want you to vote both sides, because we need your voice. You need to weigh in on everything. Then making sure people then return those as soon as possible. They can return it by mail, they can drop it off at a clerk's office, or you can use any of the number of drop box locations that are available in cities, municipalities, towns, and townships all across the state of Michigan. So my message today is a message of action for people to step up and stand tall for our communities to be counted in the census and be counted at the ballot box. If and when we do that, we will truly recognize and realize something that I believe all of you know is true, but I want to make sure everyone in Michigan knows is true. And it's that we are a powerful people, and powerful people do not leave their power on the table. Powerful people utilize their power. They make sure that that power is felt at any and every opportunity. And we need that power to be felt as we are working to respond to some challenges that we have faced unlike anything in our lifetimes. So we are thankful that Michiganders are proud and powerful people, and we hope to see that borne out. The last thing I'll speak to is certainly one of the biggest things we've been confronting this year has been the COVID-19 pandemic. And I know that has had a particular impact on the practice of congregate faith. And so I want to thank all of you for keeping your flock and their health and well-being in mind as you work to evolve the way that you administered services and the way that you served your people in the communities. And Michigan has had, we were hit hard, we were hit fast. We tried to make the best choices with the best available information, and that led to, we believe, a strong state response. We were the state that tackled racial disparities head on, and we're the state that has flattened those racial disparities. So we believe that has led to a strong overall response to our community partnerships, organizations like yours. So thank you very much for the leadership you're showing, and I got a couple minutes to take some questions.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. That was great. We do have a couple of questions lined up already, and I will ask those of you that have been trickling in, if you want to introduce yourselves in the chat, where you're at, name your congregation, that would be great. And also, if you have questions, put something in the chat, and we will try to get to as many people as we can before the Lieutenant Governor has to leave us. So no guarantees, but we'll do our best. But the first person with a question we have is Rodney. Rodney is one of our leaders in Flint that has been working on Get Out the Vote efforts and on census work as well. So Rodney, I'm asking you to unmute yourself, and you can go ahead whenever you have a chance with the Lieutenant Governor.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rodney. I'm from Michigan Faith in Action. And seeing that the census is coming to an end, right now it's coming to an end, and we've been out there, knocking and trying to get everyone signed up. Now we know that it can't be an accurate count because everyone didn't do their census. So how do the state deal with that, knowing that everybody got to be counted, but it's never an accurate count? How do the state deal with that?
Yeah, I appreciate that question, Rodney. So, the truth is, this is why we put forth such an effort with the state Be Counted campaign, the Complete Count Committee. The state of Michigan spent more money in 2020 than we have ever spent on the census effort, because we understand how critical it is and how important those resources are for our communities to be able to not only survive, but thrive. You know, imagine a complete count would have led to more personal protective equipment being made available in the state of Michigan very early on in the pandemic. A complete count would lead to us having an equitable distribution of antiviral treatment or vaccines whenever that's safely available, as an example that's really relevant. So, you know, the census ultimately is a statistical exercise, but we want the stats to be real simple because everybody participates. So that's why we try to do everything we can, and organizers like yourself really stepping up. I want to thank you for that effort to make sure that we had as complete as possible of a count in Flint. The statisticians in the U.S. Census Bureau, they do some statistical modeling based on what they receive. So it's not that, like, in a literal sense that you know, one census completed equals one person officially counted. There are some statistical modeling that happens to try to project what that is based on historical census completion rates and things like that. But the truth is, once that deadline passes, once people have had their opportunity to turn back in their census, either online or over the phone or in the mail, that's it. The state has no further role to play. Then it is in the hands of the U.S. Census Bureau to actually do the counting and the statistical work. So we started this Complete Count, Be Counted campaign, I believe, in February of this year. Not February, I'm sorry. We started it last year, excuse me. And we have been trying to hard work ever since. Now, that's been made difficult because of COVID and making the in-person activities that we would typically do more difficult and less safe. It's been difficult because the Trump administration has tried to undermine the census at every opportunity. They tried to confuse people with misinformation by saying there will be a citizenship question. They tried to say that they're not going to count undocumented people. They've had people spreading misinformation about if you complete the census that you're going to get picked up by ICE, or you're going to get warrants served. All those are vicious lies. And that is also, I think, we've been trying to combat to make sure that we got as complete a count as possible. So we have to do everything we can by September 30th, because after that, it's out of our hands.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Yeah, and I would just add, I mean, you can see as people are introducing themselves in the chat, Michigan Faith in Action, we got a lot of places that are hard to count, right? Like poor communities, communities of color, and also rural communities that are represented here today. And so we do a lot of work in the census. We got Sharon Allen here on the call, who's our point person on staff for that. No relation, but if there are people, if there are clergy here on this call that haven't been tapped into our census work and would like to, you can contact me, Eileen, or Sharon, and we would love to get you tapped into that, you know, ASAP, because there's a deadline coming up. Our next question is from Wani, and I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. Wani is also a leader of ours working on census work and get out the vote stuff. There you go, Wani.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, thank you for taking the time to meet with us. One of the questions that we have, or I have, is that now that voting's coming up with this election in November, is there a possibility that we could get more drop boxes throughout Detroit and Flint? Because that's really important, and we want to make sure that we get as many votes as we can.
Yes, so we are working to expand drop boxes every single day. I know that the Secretary of State has been working directly with the clerks of both Flint and Detroit to expand access to them. I also know that in both cities, starting in mid-October, I don't want to quote the exact date, but there will be satellite voting locations open in both those cities and in other cities across the state as well. That is actually, the governor and I, we are using our votes to actually demonstrate the much wider array of safe and convenient voting options that will be available to Michiganders this year. So I believe that she's going to be going and voting in person at her clerk's office, and I'm going to utilize one of these satellite locations when they open in mid-October. And so, yeah, there's at the michigan.gov/vote site, you can see the current map of drop boxes, and there will be more added.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, Wani. Yeah, and folks should know that we, many of you are on a call with the Secretary of State a few weeks back, and we've been meeting with state senators and pushing them. We did a sign-on letter about some legislation that would make it easier for people to vote absentee and easier for people for those ballots to be counted. It looks like that legislation just passed moments before this call started. So your efforts were successful, at least to some extent. We got to sort of look into that a little bit more. I think the Lieutenant Governor, I believe you have a few more minutes with us. Are there questions for the Lieutenant Governor before he has to get out?
One in a couple in the Dropbox.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, we've got one here. Oh, so I got Pastor Monique French. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, Pastor French, real quick, and you can go ahead, and then we got Pastor Knox up next.
Hi, good evening. My question is, if someone has already completed the census in one specific area and then they move to another area, is there a need for them to do the census again?
Absolutely.
So the question is, if you did one census form and then you move, you need to do another one?
Yes.
No, so the answer to the question is no. The census is based on basically where you are on April 1st of this year.
Okay.
So, you only need to complete the census once.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We got Pastor Knox. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. You got a good question here too.
Good evening. Thanks for joining, Lieutenant Governor. As funding for different, community programs or what was considered social programs shrink, more and more people look to the church to fill those gaps. How can churches, or how is the state working with churches to get any available funding for what used to be government funded community development or social programs?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I mean, you could answer this question in a way that it applies to both churches and faith institutions, and frankly, how it applies to sort of nonprofit direct service organizations across the board in terms of filling the gap when we have had bluntly, conservative governance disinvesting in programs that directly benefit people. And so we certainly are trying to right those disinvestments on the budget level, whether it's increasing equity when it comes to education funding, making funding available for more wraparound services and things like that, creating different incentives around food distribution and all those sorts of things. But your church, probably like my church. My church, when I was growing up at Tabernacle, served 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, for example, right, as an example. So the short answer is, Dion Williams is our contact here in the executive office, but we also have similar liaisons, particularly in different parts of the Department of Health and Human Services, that are seeking to understand what those services are, where those gaps are. But I think we have work to do, frankly. One of the reasons why we've been advocating so strongly for additional federal resources when it comes to the coronavirus response is because we have even larger holes in our state budgets as a result of what we had to do to scramble and spend to respond to this pandemic. But one of the things that we need to make up for is these human services. A lot of those human services costs that have been borne in particular by our municipalities, we need to try to fill those gaps. And, from the money perspective, to be able to share that money, whether that's through regranting processes, through CDBG dollars or whatever it may be, we're going to need more of it from the feds. And so the federal government, I believe, has had from the House, the HEROES Act, the fourth COVID relief package on the desk of the Senate since, May. And it's not taking any action, which is unacceptable. This has put all of us in a holding pattern. But nevertheless, what our commitment is as an administration is to make sure that the people who are helping people have what they need to be able to provide services, and that also that we can actually write and have those services come from the place where it needs to come from. And ultimately, a lot of those things need to be coming from the public sector at some level. It may not necessarily be the state level, like it might be the county level, it might be the municipal level, but we need to make sure that they're available at the right way to make sure they are as accessible as possible. So we're committed to that, but I think there's not a straightforward or quick answer to that question.
Yeah, thank you. Are there other questions? I don't see any in the chat. If other people have questions
for you.
Yeah, Eileen, go ahead.
Governor. And I know that you chaired the jails task force, and I wondered if you had an update on the work from where those bills are.
I do, actually. So I have two updates in terms of criminal justice reform. Folks may or may not know. So one of the things I've spent a significant amount of time on since assuming office on January 1st, 2019, has been reforming our criminal legal system that is broken, that is unjust, and that is not designed to do rehabilitative things. It is not designed to give people second chances. And so I've committed a significant amount of my time and energy on reforming that system in Michigan. And there have been two things that I've been working on in a big way in that realm that have big news today. So I'll give you the one that's finished first. The House of Representatives just passed today something called Clean Slate. What Clean Slate is a program that both expands the number of and types of criminal offenses that are available to be expunged and cleared or set aside from a person's criminal record, and do so in some of those cases in a shorter amount of time than previous was enabled by law. And the second and even more important piece of that is we now have legislation that has passed both chambers and is on to the governor for signature to be able to automatically clear people's records of certain types of offenses. This is a tremendous, I think, opportunity opening achievement, because this will automate people's access to the economy. And I'm very excited about this passing. It passed through the Senate yesterday and it passed through the House today. And this is a really big deal. Michigan will become, when this is signed into law, Michigan will become a national leader in this space. And the second piece, as Eileen alluded to, I was the co-chair of the Michigan Joint Task Force on Jails and Pretrial Incarceration. My fellow co-chair was the Chief Justice of the Michigan Supreme Court, Bridget McCormack. And we met for a year, this bipartisan task force that represented survivors of crime, victims, legislators, sheriffs, lawyers, judges, you name it, young people, like you name it, was represented on this task force. And we came up with a set of 18 recommendations in partnership with the Pew Charitable Trust that we made to the legislature in January of this year. Well, the second tranche of legislation implementing the spirit of those recommendations actually just passed the House today, or the House committee today, and it passed out of that committee unanimously and is on the agenda now for the floor this afternoon. So this is a big step in really, I think, closing the door to the front door of our system of mass incarceration. We are working to do things, just to give you a sense of the recommendations. Incentivize jail alternatives, decriminalize certain offenses to be citable instead of arrestable, so you can't even take somebody to jail for it. In the practice of keeping people in jail pre-trial, in the practice of sending people to jail for, failure to pay or failure to appear, which is debtor's prison. Changing significantly Michigan's system of mandatory minimums when it comes to jails. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, and we have legislation to do all of it. And we're going to try to move as much of that legislation as we can before the end of this calendar year.
So just so you know, and for those of you who don't know, that Michigan Faith in Action is very instrumental in the work of the Clean Slate. We worked really hard with our legislator and met with both those committees. In fact, Rodney, who spoke earlier, testified before one of the Senate committees. So we're really excited about that news.
Yeah, I was going to say many of you on this call have been involved in that fight for a long time. So this is a big victory for us too. That's great news. We're going to have, I think the Lieutenant Governor has time for one more question, and I think we'll go to Pastor Jackson. I know there's other folks that had other questions. We just got limited time with the Lieutenant Governor. We're grateful that he's taking this time with us. So we'll go to Pastor Jackson, and we'll do some next steps and follow up. Let the Lieutenant Governor go. Pastor Jackson, yeah.
Right. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. When the earlier presentation that was presented by the Secretary of State indicated that there was a way that we could actually purchase drop boxes for our communities. And I haven't heard any more information about that, whether or not that was true or not, but that was a part of the presentation that Michigan Faith in Action actually sponsored, and wondered if in fact that is true, and if it is true, how that can be done.
I don't know the answer to that question, but Dion can seek out an answer for that.
Yeah. So we should also we should give a shout out to Dion. Dion is the governor's point person for faith communities, and he helped us arrange this meeting and everything. But and has been very helpful in general. So, Lieutenant Governor, join me in thanking the Lieutenant Governor for joining us tonight. It's been a real blessing to have you with us, and I think hopefully this is the beginning of a relationship moving forward where we can continue to be in conversation. I think it'll be beneficial to all of us.
Absolutely. Thanks, y'all. Everybody take care. Make sure your people vote. Make sure your people do the census. You hear my kids in the background. Make sure y'all
future voters.
Just continue to do your organizing, okay? Look, I spent my career organizing after I left the private sector. I believe in it. So stay committed, y'all. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So as you can see,
if possible, Luke,
go ahead.
Pastor Jackson, I'll just follow up. I've been in contact with Daniel Baxter out of the city of Detroit, who is now back in the elections department. As it pertains to the drop boxes and the purchasing of your communities, I will make sure I follow up with him first thing this evening after this call, as making sure we get that information back out to you and this coalition as it pertains to the state as a whole, and along with Hester Wheeler, who is the Deputy Secretary of State for the state of Michigan. I'll make sure that we connect with you and we get this information back out to you as far as the drop boxes, if they can be purchased, where they are, where they're located, as well as your the locations for the vote in person locations where you can go and vote right now as of today, because AV ballots are out today. And you can go and vote in person. No, same day registration as well as same day voting starting today. You can vote right now. If you're not registered to vote, you can go register to vote and vote in the same day. Please tell your people. It's so vitally important so we can make that happen, okay?
Thank you, Dan. Yeah. Deanne, do you have time to answer? We got one more question in the queue. I don't know if you have an answer to it, but Pastor Knox had one more question. I don't know if Deanne's in the position to answer, but it's worth a shot, right? And then we'll wrap up.
I got you. What you got for me?
How you doing? There was a task force put together to kind of undo the racist gerrymandering and redistricting that was done. Is there a place that the public can see the status of what's going on with that task force?
So there were several task force that were formulated. Which one are you specifically speaking to?
So are
you talking about the Black Leadership Advisory Council, or is it the Disparities Task Force?
The Black Leadership Advisory Council.
So yes. So that is currently right now. We are still formulating that task force. The actual entities that are going to be on the task force have not been confirmed yet. We are still vetting them out. We should have that within the next 2 weeks, I would say, before the election is completed. We should have that task force and those names out then. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I assume, Dion, that we can reach out to you and get that information and share it with folks.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you have not applied, there's still opportunity for you to apply. Go to Michigan, michigan.gov/appointments. Upload your information, and then when it calls for what you are trying to apply for, you apply for BLAC, BLAC, which is the Black Leadership Advisory Council.
Thank you, Deanne.
I guess I have one more.
Oh, sure, yeah, go ahead.
You sort of reminded me about this, and this was about the redistricting commission and where we are with that in terms of when those public meetings will be held, or I know that they selected the finalists. I was not a finalist. I'd be happy because I wanted to do it, but I know that all of the finalists for the commission have been selected.
So what I would do is I would double check with Hester Wheeler out of the Secretary of State office. He's the Deputy Secretary of State office. He's the Deputy Secretary of State next to Jocelyn Bliston. And what I would do is confirm with him when those meetings will start to transition and start to make, and then where you can get the minutes from those meetings that are taking place. And then I would actually invite him to come on and talk to this full body.
Yeah, we had him here just a few weeks ago. He was here with the Secretary of State.
Okay.
Yeah, he was here with Secretary Benson. That was really great.
That question didn't come up then?
No, it didn't.
Okay. So I'll make sure I'll reach back out to him, get the confirmation, and then send forward over to you, Ms. Hayes and Mr. Allen.
Great. So we're
just as an FYI, this is Dr. Bland. The city clerk, Jocelyn Benson, city clerk Janice Winfrey announced the 30 drop boxes and 21 voting centers today at 3 o'clock that were situated for the city of Detroit. And within the city clerk's office, that was for the city of Detroit, yes.
Right.
So there's 51 places, 30 drop boxes and 21 voting centers that were announced today. That's for the city of Detroit only, though.
And I'll make sure I get that information for you and post it to your website.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Bland, and thank you, Deanne. So we're gonna wrap up here. I see a question about Deanne's contact info. We have it. I can get it out to you guys in a follow-up email to everyone on this call. And I will say just a few next steps. So we are organizing around the state. I mentioned this on all of our calls in many places around the state. Many of you know me personally through our work around the state, or know Eileen or Sharon. If you're not involved in our local organizing in any specific region, you should contact us. And I will be following up with many of you. In fact, I see Bishop Bard, who I have a one-on-one schedule with tomorrow, and a few other of you I have one-on-one scheduled with in the near future as well. So we'd love to have you tap into our local organizing. Secondly, Deanne's boss, Governor Whitmer, is going to be meeting with us on October 8th, which is very exciting for us. October 8th at 11:30 a.m. I assume those of you that are here know about that. And we are expecting a pretty high turnout, so make sure you're registered if you're not already. And feel free to invite your colleagues, right? This is for any clergy in the state of Michigan. That'll be October 8th at 11:30. That being said, I think we'll wrap up. And unless Eileen, you have anything you want to add?
Just one final clarification, and that is, while we call this a clergy roundtable, and it is primarily for clergy, we do know that you have a number of really faithful, dedicated lay that you would like to see at these meetings, and we'd like to see them too. So by all means, they're certainly encouraged to attend.